Ancient Book of Enoch. It is a book that was quite popular during the first 700 years of church history, but then faded from sight. Nobody republished it. It disappeared.
The Book of Enoch, banned, hidden, and whispered about for centuries, contains visions of portals, cosmic watchers, and time that does not flow in one direction. For generations, these writings were dismissed as myth or heresy.
What is the Book of Enoch? Was it written by the great-grandfather of Noah, and why is it quoted in the New Testament, but not found in our Bible? Let's talk about that.
But now, cutting-edge quantum experiments are exposing cracks in our understanding of reality, and strangely, they echo Enoch's most disturbing claims. Did an ancient prophet truly witness the quantum fabric of the universe? And if so, why was his book buried? What you're about to hear may change how you see time, space, and even human destiny. Enoch and the Quantum Rift. The Book of Enoch is one of the most mysterious texts in human history. Once revered by early Jewish sects and even quoted in the New Testament's Epistle of Jude, it was later banned from most biblical canons. Why? Because it dared to describe things that seemed too unsettling, too dangerous to be openly shared. Unlike other sacred texts that focused on moral codes or genealogies, Enoch's writings plunged straight into cosmic visions. He spoke of watchers, powerful beings who descended from the heavens, of portals that connected realms, and of hidden knowledge about the structure of the universe. Church authorities, faced with a choice, decided it was better for this book to be forgotten. For centuries, it remained in the shadows, surviving only in the Ethiopian canon and in fragments discovered in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Its exclusion was no accident. The imagery was too radical. It hinted that humanity was not alone, that reality itself was layered, and that knowledge once given to humans could unravel the very foundations of religious control. Now, fast forward to the modern age. The very ideas that made Enoch's visions sound impossible are being echoed by the world's leading physicists. In 2017, Juan Maldacena and Leonard Susskind introduced the ER equals EPR conjecture, suggesting that wormholes and quantum entanglement may be two faces of the same phenomenon. In 2022, researchers at MIT took it further, showing entangled photons behaving as if connected by a microscopic tunnel in space-time. When one photon flipped, its partner flipped instantly, no matter how far apart they were. To most of us, this sounds like magic, but to Enoch, it would have looked familiar. In his visions, he saw doors in the sky opening, realms of light beyond the earth, and beings who traversed these unseen paths. Today, scientists call them wormholes and entanglement. Thousands of years ago, Enoch described them in the only language he had. This is where things get even more unsettling. Enoch's writings don't just align with vague metaphors. They describe layered heavens, realms of time where past and future coexist, and beings who move freely across dimensions. Modern quantum theory now entertains the possibility of hidden dimensions, non-linear time, and retrocausality. What was once heresy in the ancient world has become the cutting edge of physics. And so scholars, theologians, and even scientists are beginning to re-examine Enoch's words. Were they simply allegories? Or was this text preserving something far more literal? When physicists see entanglement as bridges of pure information and mystics describe portals of light, the overlap is too striking to ignore. This is why conversations about Enoch are resurfacing not just in religious circles, but in scientific journals and public debates. The Book of Enoch may have been buried to protect orthodoxy, but modern discoveries have dragged it back into the light. What was once dismissed as myth may now be recognized as the earliest attempt to describe the true nature of reality. If entanglement really does weave space-time together, if wormholes are not fiction but fact, then Enoch's cosmic journeys read less like mysticism and more like testimony. The question that lingers is unsettling. Did Enoch stumble into quantum truth centuries before modern science could catch up? And if so, what else in his banned text might still be waiting to be confirmed? What if Enoch's visions weren't symbolic at all, but eyewitness accounts of encounters with beings beyond Earth, the Watchers and the forbidden knowledge. If Enoch's visions of portals and cosmic realms shook the foundations of early religion, it was his account of the Watchers that truly made the text dangerous. According to the Book of Enoch, 200 of these beings descended to Earth, taking on human form. They were not messengers of peace. They were celestial entities sent to observe, but instead they interfered with humanity in ways that reshaped the course of our destiny. The Watchers crossed a boundary no one expected them to cross. They mingled with human women, and their unions produced offspring unlike anything the world had ever seen. These children were giants, the Nephilim, towering beings who consumed resources, disrupted societies, and left behind a legacy of fear. The text suggests that their very existence was an abomination, the result of divine law being broken. But the story doesn't stop there. The Watchers also gave humanity knowledge that was considered forbidden. They taught metallurgy, weapon-making, cosmetics, astrology, and hidden arts that accelerated civilization but also sowed corruption. To some, this sounds like myth, yet it parallels other ancient traditions across the world. In Sumerian mythology, the Apkallu were semi-divine sages who descended from the heavens to impart skills like agriculture, writing, and astronomy. In West African lore, the Mami Wata are beings from the sea who abduct humans, sometimes forcing them into unions that produce unusual offspring, often returning with enhanced abilities. Native American traditions speak of star people, beings from the sky who taught medicine, hunting techniques, and even governance. Across cultures, the pattern repeats. Otherworldly beings arrive, intermingle with humans, and forever alter the trajectory of human development. Could it all be coincidence? Or are these global echoes pointing back to the same hidden history? When the Book of Enoch describes the Watchers as being stationed in the heavens, their behavior resembles more of a rogue intervention than angelic guidance. And the hybrids they created, the Nephilim, bear striking resemblance to the giants and titans described in Greek, Norse, and even native legends. If so many cultures recall the same story, how likely is it that they all imagined it independently? More unsettling still is how consistently these stories link to astronomical knowledge far beyond what ancient societies should have known. The Dogon tribe of Mali, for instance, preserved knowledge of Sirius as a multi-star system long before modern astronomy confirmed it. Where did that knowledge come from? The Book of Enoch offers one possibility. It came from the Watchers, beings with access to realms beyond Earth. For the early church and rabbinic leaders, this was dangerous ground. If humanity had been shaped not only by divine creation, but also by interference from these powerful beings, then the entire framework of monotheistic religion would be challenged. To preserve order, the Book of Enoch was cast aside. The narrative of the Watchers and their hybrid offspring was reduced in Genesis 6 to a few cryptic lines, stripped of its depth. By erasing Enoch, authorities could erase questions about human origins, questions that might reveal truths they weren't ready to face. What if the real reason the text was banned was not because it was heresy, but because it was history? And yet, as shocking as the Watchers' story is, Enoch's most terrifying claim wasn't about them at all. It was about something far stranger, a reality where time itself refused to obey the rules. Time reversal and the heavenly tablets. For most of history, time has been seen as a one-way river, flowing from past to present to future with no possibility of reversal. But quantum physics has begun to disrupt that comfortable certainty. In 2023, a team of European researchers led by physicist Sandu Popescu conducted an experiment that revealed something astonishing. Using entangled electrons and ultra-precise measurements, they observed particles performing a feat that defied logic. In certain cases, the electrons appeared to tunnel through barriers, not just moving through walls they shouldn't cross, but doing so in reverse order. Their destination was recorded before they even began the journey. In other words, the effect was measured before the cause. This wasn't a mathematical trick or an error in measurement. It was peer-reviewed, repeatable science. Retrocausality, events moving backward in time, had shifted from theory to experimental reality. Now compare this with the Book of Enoch. The prophet describes being taken into heavenly realms where he sees both past and future unfolding before his eyes. He writes of heavenly tablets, records of all events that had ever occurred and those that had not yet happened. For centuries, these passages were dismissed as poetic allegory, mystical flourishes of an imaginative mind. But when quantum physics demonstrates that the future can influence the present and that particles can appear to move backward in time, Enoch's testimony begins to sound less like metaphor and more like observation. Was he describing the same retrocausal patterns that modern experiments are now confirming? The parallels are chilling. If the universe allows for retrocausality at the quantum level, then the heavenly tablets might not be mystical records at all. They could represent an ancient way of describing a reality in which time is not linear but layered, where the past, present, and future exist simultaneously. In such a framework, prophecy isn't a miracle. It's a glimpse into a future that is already present, waiting to be observed. Judgment isn't delayed until the end of time. It's encoded into the fabric of existence from the very beginning. And destiny? It may not be written after the fact, but inscribed into the universe itself like code written into a program. This reimagining has terrifying implications. If time can move backward as well as forward, then free will becomes a slippery concept. Are we truly making choices, or are we simply walking along a script already inscribed on those heavenly tablets? If cause and effect are not absolute, then prophecy takes on a new meaning. It is not foretelling in the mystical sense, but accessing information that is already encoded in a non-linear timeline. And if Enoch really witnessed this, it would mean his visions weren't fantasy, but a first-hand account of reality's deeper architecture. Retrocausality changes more than physics textbooks. It alters how we think about morality, accountability, and the ultimate fate of humanity. If the future can shape the present, then every action echoes in both directions, and every choice may already have been decided. The ancient vision of a prophet staring at divine tablets begins to look eerily like a man glimpsing the raw code of time itself. If time itself can fold, then perhaps reality isn't built from matter at all, but from code, the simulation and the scribes of heaven. If retrocausality rattles our ideas about time, the next discovery threatens to upend reality itself. In 2016, theoretical physicist James Gates revealed something shocking hidden in the mathematics of string theory. While studying supersymmetry equations, he found embedded error-correcting codes, the same kind of codes used in computer science to detect and correct errors in digital communication. These weren't loose metaphors or symbolic parallels. They were mathematically real, woven into the very equations describing the universe. This finding led to an unsettling question. Why would error-correcting codes, a distinctly computational feature, be baked into the fabric of physics itself? To some scientists, it suggested that reality might not be fundamental matter at all, but a programmed simulation. The laws of physics would then be algorithms, space and time, data fields, the cosmos itself, a vast digital architecture. Now return to the Book of Enoch. He describes angelic scribes recording every deed of humanity, storing records that determine judgment and destiny. He writes of heavenly portals that allow him to cross vast distances instantly, as if moving through hidden gateways in the system. For centuries, theologians insisted these were allegories. But with the lens of computational reality, they take on new meaning. What if the scribes weren't metaphors for moral record keepers, but representations of processes, administrators of information embedded in the universe itself? In modern terms, they sound eerily like system operators. And the portals Enoch traveled through. They resemble access points in a program, wormholes or back doors that bypass the ordinary flow of time and space. If reality is coded, then Enoch may have stumbled into its back end, describing it in the only language he had available. This perspective transforms the entire text. The Watchers, once described as rebellious angels, could be system administrators gone rogue, entities meddling in human affairs like programmers altering the course of a simulation. The heavenly tablets might not be mystical scrolls, but databases of information, tracking every possibility across time. Even the Tree of Life, which Enoch described as pulsing with divine energy, could be reinterpreted as a symbolic vision of the core code that sustains the operating system of reality. When looked at this way, the Book of Enoch reads less like religious myth and more like a technical manual written in ancient poetry. The implications are staggering. If we are living in a simulation, then our reality is not the ground truth. It is the interface. The scribes Enoch encountered were not imagined beings, but higher-order intelligences maintaining the system, recording and correcting the flow of information. This raises new questions. Who built the system, and why? Are these beings administrators of a divine order, or simply gatekeepers of a larger hidden intelligence? And what does it mean for humanity if we are not players in the system but data points inside it? This view doesn't diminish the Book of Enoch. On the contrary, it elevates it. Instead of being dismissed as superstition, its visions may represent one of the earliest accounts of contact with the deeper framework of existence. When modern science uncovers error-correcting codes in the equations of the cosmos, and an ancient text speaks of heavenly scribes and portals, the resonance is too powerful to ignore. But what happens when consciousness itself is revealed as the key, not just to observing reality, but to shaping it? Consciousness and the terrifying implications. If the universe is coded, then the final missing piece is the observer. For decades, physicists have argued about the role of consciousness in shaping reality. In classical physics, the mind is irrelevant, just a bystander in a mechanical universe. But in quantum theory, the act of observation changes everything. Experiments like the double-slit test show that particles behave differently depending on whether they are observed. This has led some researchers to suggest that consciousness is not emergent from matter, but fundamental to the cosmos itself. It may be woven into the very fabric of reality, not as an afterthought, but as the foundation. Now look again at Enoch's words. All things were first shown to me as thought before they were formed. For centuries, readers treated this as mysticism, poetic imagery of divine inspiration. But what if it was literal? What if Enoch was describing the same principle that physicists are now proposing? That reality begins not with matter, but with intention. That thought, awareness, and consciousness come first, and everything else unfolds from them. This is where altered states of consciousness become important. In modern labs, studies on deep meditation, psychedelic therapy, and sensory isolation reveal startling patterns. Volunteers often report experiences of timelessness, synesthesia, or a feeling of unity with a vast field of awareness. These descriptions align closely with what mystics across cultures have always said, that the mind can slip into layers of existence beyond ordinary perception. Enoch's journeys into the heavens, his visions of light and music, his ability to see both past and future simultaneously. Could these have been the result of his consciousness accessing quantum layers of reality? If so, then his book is not simply prophecy. It is a record of direct experience, a survival manual for navigating the hidden architecture of the cosmos. And here lies the terrifying implication. If consciousness truly connects us to the quantum structure of reality, then human destiny may not rest in our hands alone. Enoch's encounters with the Watchers, his visions of cosmic judgment, and his warnings of destiny already inscribed on the heavenly tablets all suggest that humanity's path is observed, recorded, and perhaps even controlled. We may be participants in a reality where the rules are set by forces far beyond us. These forces may not be benevolent, and they may not allow for free will in the way we imagine. The unsettling truth is that Enoch's visions hint at a universe where consciousness is both the key to access and the leash that binds us. For the early church, this would have been explosive. A text that suggested reality is a conscious field, that human choices are part of a larger script, and that unseen beings may be administrators of destiny would undermine both doctrine and authority. Better to bury the book than allow such ideas to spread. Perhaps this is why Enoch was silenced for centuries, not because it was myth, but because it contained truths too dangerous to reveal. In the end, Enoch may not have been warning us about heaven or hell, but about the very architecture of reality, a system we are only beginning to glimpse through quantum science. And that may be why this book was banned, not because it was myth, but because it was truth too dangerous to reveal. The Book of Enoch may not be myth. It may be the earliest record of quantum reality, hidden for centuries until science caught up. From watchers reshaping humanity, to time folding in on itself, to reality itself running like a vast simulation, Enoch's visions demand a second look. If this discovery has shaken your idea of reality, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't miss the video on your screen right now, where we dive deeper into the hidden beings of Enoch and the shocking ways they resemble real quantum field models.